Naomi. How are you? Lovely to see you. Been ages, but so glad that we could have a chat today for Cultural Voices. Um, just a quick one to explain to everyone, first of all, um, I guess where you are at the moment, where you sitting. So I know you're traveling around at the moment. I've been all over the world, but where are you today?
Yes. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting to you.
Of course.
And yeah, nice to see you. Currently, I am in New York City, Brooklyn, to be precise. For the past couple of years, I've been ping-ponging around between Italy and New York. And I'm here now.
Well, I'll tell you, I guess that takes us back to obviously, and maybe for people who don't know, but Naomi is very proudly and fiercely Italian, which we all love about her. So we know each other from before, but Naomi recently moved back home to Sicily, and making us all want to come to Sicily, to be honest. Tell us a bit about you growing up there. Is that where you're born and raised?
No, actually, Sicily is my dad's birthplace, Palermo to be
Mm.
precise.
Mhm.
I was born and raised predominantly in the north of Italy, in a very tiny town
Mhm.
nearby Modena, which is where my mom is from.
Mhm.
My dad, because he was a professional football player, he left Sicily when he was 14 years old and moved to Bologna, actually, because Bologna bought
Mm.
him, or he went to play there. And he
Mhm.
kind of spent 15 years over there. And because of a, not even injury, but he had appendicitis that they didn't catch in time, and he
Mm.
had to go through surgery, whatever. But because of the recovery period, then he was sent to play in this very small town, and that's where he met my mom.
Ah,
Um, yeah.
right.
And in fact, I always say like, "Oh, I was born because of football," because I don't think that my dad and my mom would have ever met otherwise. And
Wow.
yeah. And so my mom, obviously, like, actually, when I was born, my dad wasn't playing there. He was playing somewhere else in a town called Alessandria, still in the north of Italy. But my mom, because of my dad's very demanding job, was often alone. So she always decided to go back home to give birth. And so I was born there. And then I kind of moved right away to join my dad.
Mm.
Who was very crazy. So he changed team every year for the first years of
Right.
my life. And so I was born, I was raised around Italy. And then when I was 5 years old, we moved to Indonesia. And then I stayed there for 1 year. And then
Okay.
we came.
And where did you land back when you came back to Italy after Indonesia?
Yes, we did, but we went to Torrent.
Yes.
So I didn't,
Okay, you
so
mentioned children.
yeah. And but my dad, he so uh essentially when my parents met back in the days in the 70s, being a person
Yes.
from the north and a person from the south is like someone who was coming from Scandinavia and a person the other person from Africa.
Sure. Yes.
So
Yes.
it was a very unlikely union. And my dad, like
Mhm.
many other Sicilians, is a very proud Sicilian. So for him, the
Mhm.
fact that I was born, or me and my sister, because I have an older sister, we're born in the north of Italy,
Mhm.
and we're raised a little bit everywhere, does not cover the fact that we're still Sicilians for him. Like I was raised to
Okay.
be and he's a very big, I guess, promoter of the island. And I grew up obviously like every summer and
Sure.
every school
Of
break I
course.
would go there to my grandma and everyone. So
It's incredible, this fusion of Italy and football and north
mhm.
and south, because
Yeah.
actually the obsession with football in Italy, as is now the world and everywhere, is incredible. And the influence of football and Italian football specifically is huge. um, you know, that for me is something that I'd like to unlock, because obviously, I talk about people's career paths being really influenced by their culture and the cultures that surround them, and these kind of things. And I know we're quite similar in how we think about culture. It's wider than, fashion, music, art. It's everything together, right? So I love this idea of all these things coming together for you, actually.
Mhm.
And what values and what did you learn from this kind of Sicilian, pride, um, you know, born and raised in the North, which I know the difference felt quite stark. And then this
Mhm.
Italian culture, and then Indonesia just thrown in into the mix.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
how has that helped you shape the world today that you see? How do you
Oh,
think this
well, I think that my
mix?
upbringing
Yeah,
has everything to do with who I am today and how I see the world today.
sure. Yeah.
Because again, like two people that come from outside of Italy and don't really know the history of Italy, it may like I'm Italian and that's just what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
really, like
Mm-hmm.
having
Mm-hmm.
one parent from the north and one parent from the south is almost as if like your parents are from two
Yes.
different countries.
Mm.
So I was always kind of encouraged to explore different cultures and keep an open mind, which
Mm-hmm.
is I think a value that my family has like really strongly instilled in me. And also I think that one thing that I get from like Sicilian side of my family is like a really big like I guess focus on respect and transparency and always being true
Mm.
to yourself. Sometimes almost brutally, I think. But
Yeah.
uh, one thing that my parents and my upbringing, I guess, like taught me is to always be true to myself and
Mm.
being apologetic. Well, oh my God, I cannot say this word, but I always being myself essentially, and not be afraid of
Unapologetic.
and
Yeah,
apologetic. There you go.
that's it. Yes,
Always
yes.
being myself and just
Mhm.
if something is not serving me, obviously within the bounds of reasons and I guess
Yes.
respect for others and for myself, to just
Mhm.
remove myself from the thing. So I think that the one of the things that I always like thank my parents for is like thank you for putting me or raising me in such a like a culturally diverse environment. Also because like being born
Mm.
in a family where your dad is an athlete, obviously like football is a very diverse sport. So I
Of
was
course.
raised around a lot of people from different continents and cultures,
Mhm.
whatever. So that has definitely influenced who I am today and how I think and how I live my life. And
Mm.
I'm very grateful for that. And also I think that because
Yes.
we moved around so much when I was little, that has also definitely influenced my life in the future because I've been around the world as an adult and still to this day, uh, kind of bouncing around a lot.
Yeah. And that's just carried on with you, because every time I'm like, "Where's Naomi?" It's like, "I'm in LA. I'm in blah." So but it's these are great skills. I feel these are great skills. I think sometimes people feel like that can feel difficult and hard, and I'm sure it could potentially, but it also gives you different skills. You know what I mean? So was there a moment, like, have you always known that football would be part of your career path somehow? Like, how did
No.
that happen? So what were you doing? Where, what was the interest? And then what changed for you?
Yes, great question, actually. Well, I never set out to think that football would become my path. Actually, growing up, I kind of despised football because he was taking my dad away from me. Obviously, he was
Of course.
always very busy.
Mm.
I grew up playing basketball and I was much more interested in the NBA than Italian football at that time.
Sure.
And
Hmm.
I always thought that, oh, I am going to have a career in fashion, which I kind of had for a while.
Yes.
But it kind of went away. I mean, I'm still doing a lot of work in fashion nowadays, but in different ways. And
Hmm.
so, no,
Hmm.
I never knew that football would become like my North star, you know. But I can
Mm.
definitely pinpoint like the moment in which like this switch happened.
Ooh. Yes.
11 years ago now, 2014. And I had always been writing like on the side, like as a hobby. Like as many people know, I have a lot of things to say. So I think writing was
Sure.
always like my
Yes.
my my I guess practice of choice. And a friend of mine, Callum Gordon, he was working or he was helping some other friends bringing the second issue of this magazine that is now very famous called Mondial to
Yes, of
life.
course.
And the second issue was dedicated to the 1919 World Cup, which was played in Italy. And so he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, like because of your background, because of your dad's connections in football, like, do you have any stories that you want to pitch in?" And I was like, "I don't know. I football." And
Sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, maybe. So I remember that
Yeah.
my dad, when he was little, and playing in Palermo, he used to play in the same football academy as this guy named Totò Schillaci, who was kind of like, well, he was a really big football player in Italy, but he was specifically the
Mhm.
hero of this World Cup for Italians. And
Right.
so I told
Yeah.
Callum, well, my dad knows this guy. I can get him, I can get you his contact and then you can do whatever you want. And he was like,
Mhm.
why don't you interview him? And I was like, what? Okay, I've never done anything like this.
Oh,
But then I
great.
ended up
Yeah.
interviewing the guy, and I was like, wow, maybe there is something more to football that I've not looked into before. And I actually quite like
Mhm.
discussing these subjects with people. And so from there, for the past 11 years, then I've contributed to Mundial quite regularly. And
Yes.
I always tribute them or like say that they are the reason why I work in football now or I have a career
Well,
in the football space.
it's interesting though, because we know Mundial. We also know there's a real sort of like style element that comes with Mundial. It's interesting that
Mhm.
they knew about you because probably of your other background in visual communications, fashion, and what have you. And that was actually how they even
Yeah.
heard about Naomi Accardi. And then you had this, this football connection that was perfect. Because I've
Mhm.
always talked about, within our, and I'm talking about even when I was doing sneakers and back in the day, there's an interconnectedness between these things. It isn't just one or the other or the other. They kind of intersect with each other quite a lot. I talk to my clients about that quite a lot because I think people always go, oh, culture is just one thing. Actually, it's multiple things, and people can have multiple interests and where they intersect is where the beautiful connections might happen. So I think this is a really perfect example of someone who may want to work in football but could have a different entry point that they ever thought that they needed to, because people want to work within their passions, and sometimes they don't know how to do that, and they always feel like they may have to be the player. Actually, there's
Yeah.
other places like yourself that now that you've unlocked and uncovered that passion, you're doing it in a way that you do it. You don't have to be the star player. You know what I'm trying to say? There's so many different things. So I love that story, and that's great. Have has any of your lived experiences, travel, this kind of pride, family pride, this kind of love for, has that ever impacted the way you navigate challenges or opportunities? So how do you approach sort of, I don't know, just looking at difficult things, and does those values that you learned from all this different experience really help you address these? Is there any examples that you can think
Totally.
of?
Yeah, so I always say that I do not see myself and work and my work detached from each other. Like I think that my
Yeah,
work is an extension of who I am.
same.
They're strictly intertwined.
Hmm.
So every single experience I've had in my life has influenced how I navigate my professional life.
Yeah.
And three values that I stand by in my life, private life, whatever, that I want to that I apply to everything, are honesty and kindness, as I
Mm.
was before. And I use this also when I'm working as well. So I'm obviously like, I think that you learn how to apply these and how to use these values
Mhm.
as you grow. I did not start by being so confident in my work or like being so um,
Sure.
respecting of my value in the
Mhm.
field right off the bat. Actually, like for many years, I was like, oh, like people are doing me a favor by asking me to write for their magazine, whatever.
Mm.
And sometimes, that kind of still to this day, like although I have been doing this for like 10 plus years, that insecurity sometimes seeps through, or what they call it, like imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
But
imposter, I think it's called. Yeah.
but I can definitely give some examples of like how like my value of self-respect or respect have played out.
Yes,
Actually in my
please.
very first job. So just for context, I studied fashion, well,
Mm-hmm.
visual communication in a fashion school, and
Mm.
then here in the States, and then I moved back to Italy, and I had no idea what I was going to do. Even though my what I do now is kind of like related to what my family's line of work was, no one in my family had a creative job, so I had no idea what were the positions out there or the jobs that I could pursue. I kind of knew that
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in communications, but I got a internship, or I got a job, let's say, as an assistant to this lady who was like a very famous like events organizer in fashion in Milan.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it was like a very devil wears Prada type of situation. Like I was heavily
Whew.
underpaid,
Yeah.
overly mistreated. Like she was
Yeah.
very crazy, and like 6 months working there, I was working very long hours, not valued
Mm-hmm.
for myself. And we had to had organized a after party for a pavilion at the Art Biennale in Venice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like while she was out there having fun, I was the one working, and I was
In the
getting paid
background. Yeah.
exactly in the background. Raining was horrible, and my monthly check was 200 euros. So
Woo.
that
Yes.
yes, very low.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Times have changed, thankfully, but back
Yeah.
then this was what you had to do. And so
Mm.
like at the end of the event, whatever, like the organizers of this party, or like the people that had hired us to do it, sent an email like thanking uh us for the work done. And
Mm-hmm.
I my one of my jobs was to kind of like respond to clients' emails and let her know, hey, like this person has messaged, we need to get
Mm-hmm.
back to them. And she kept
Mm-hmm.
putting it off. And the email was also addressed to me as well. So I simply responded, hey, like it was a pleasure working together. That's it. Until next time.
That's
And
done.
and she flipped out at me, but like really like badly, because she was like, you nobody cares about your intern opinions, and
Wow. Whew.
you should never
Mm.
answer one of my clients before me, blah blah blah. And I was like, I literally
Mm.
just said thank you for, and the email was addressed to me. So
Mm.
after months of like being mistreated, this was like the where I drew the line, and I like
The
literally told her,
final.
you know what.
Yeah.
Yes, final. I was like, I will not sit here and allow you to treat me this way for 200 euros a month. I'm
Mm-hmm.
new in this industry, but I know that I should not be treated this way. So I got up literally and walked away. And because it was 1 week before Fashion Week, and obviously she needed all the help, she literally ran after me and she told me, no, stay. It was just words. And I was like, no, those were not just words. Like, this
Yeah.
is not okay. And so from that moment, I was just like, okay, I'm never allowing anybody else to treat me this way.
Yeah. Mm.
Because it's true that like I'm just coming, I don't know anything about this industry. Like I'm just learning and you're teaching me, but at the same time, I deserve respect because I'm working
Of
hard
course.
and I want to help
Yeah.
you. So yes, I think that that was like the one time that I had to kind of like really step up in my value of like self-respect or like dignity, and just let her know, listen, you're not gonna be treating me like this. And unfortunately, I stayed, and for literally the 1 week for Fashion Week, but the next week, this kind of like behavior repeated itself. So that was like really like I
Okay.
was like, okay, now
Yeah.
like last week I told you this, I was not gonna accept this. This time you're doing it again. Goodbye, I'm out. And then I
Yeah.
left. And I never walked back. Well, actually, she owed me my €200 for
She
that
still hasn't
month.
paid. She doesn't still
Not
hasn't paid that
today.
$200. Ah.
So I was obviously distraught, and I was like, I'm never going back there. I don't want to see her again. And then I was talking to my father, and he was like, no, you work hard for those €200. You need to
Of
go and pick
course.
them up.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how to do it, whatever. And then finally, like, I racked up the the courage to go back and get my check. And she literally like cracked the door open and handed it to me like this. And I was like, okay, peace. Like
And she
you,
didn't even apologize even then.
no, nothing. No.
It's
Yeah.
interesting though, because I feel like although that was a huge learning for you, I mean, that's obviously
Mhm.
never going to happen to you again. I always feel like these moments are proper learning moments. They really, really
Mhm.
are. Tells you a lot about yourself, tells you about what you feel your value is as well. And I'm glad it happened when you were quite early in your career. I think some people, it goes through their career for a long, long, long time. And that must be hard
Yeah.
to hard because so anyway, I think that's great. I'm like, cool, you got
Mhm.
it out the way really quickly and really young, but you must have felt like you retained some of your power, you know what I mean? Because it's an important thing to go forward. So at least you got your money, because I do feel like people should get paid for work, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I feel very
Yeah.
strongly about that. That for me, I don't mess about with that kind of stuff at all. I'm very, very, very um anti free labor. I don't think it's
Yeah.
cool. Even though we had to all do it
Of course.
early on, work experience, all that kind of stuff. I think
Mhm.
now, I think it's, people add value. So that's the way I see it anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
glad you got your £200. Um,
Yeah.
have has your personal kind of have you ever faced situations where you had to choose between this? So you've just explained this, but from a professional, like trends and sort of like industry
Yeah.
shifts, how do you
Yeah.
navigate sort of sticking to your guns when there may be a big, trend coming through and you're
Yeah.
like, this is fine, but it's really not authentic. How do you navigate that with projects that you're working on and clients?
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
hard one.
yeah, you're opening an already
Yeah.
open door.
Mm.
So this is a really big topic of contention for me because obviously
Sure.
I have very strict or I have a lot of opinions and I have very strict parameters of what I want to work on, especially when it comes to
Hmm.
something that is, let's say, inspired by a subculture or a
Hmm.
culture that um, is currently the hot topic. And so this
I
happened.
wonder what that could be, Naomi.
This
I
happens
mean,
to
if it's
me
not football,
all.
I don't know what else it is, but yeah.
No, yes. I mean, obviously, right now, like football is like the main talk of the
Like,
town.
yeah.
But this
Yeah.
happened like
But
me,
I know what you
obviously.
mean, even subculture. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working in streetwear for a long time, so that was
Hmm.
another thing. Like I think that football right now is like living what skateboarding lived like 5, 10 years ago.
Back in the
Which
day.
is
Sure.
weird because like skateboarding is definitely more of a niche,
Yes.
than football. But
Mm.
I so I think that because I also so out there with my voice and I have like voiced multiple times or all the time my thoughts about this type of situation where like
Hmm.
industry standards or like industry needs and trends
Hmm.
go against what the authenticity of the actual culture or subculture. I have hindered myself or like I have lost on opportunities because, and I know this because people that work in these companies then tell me, like my friends, they're like, oh, like we want to work with you, but somebody else was like, oh no, she's too opinionated or whatever. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Mm,
I don't want to care.
mm,
I'm not. So I before I was like more malleable in the sense that like somebody would come to me with an
mm-hmm,
idea of like something that I was like really close to, and football, for example,
mm-hmm,
was always like one thing, and I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I see why they want to do this, whatever. Like obviously, like
mm-hmm.
I'm 1% of the people that care so deeply about something when it's
Yeah.
related to like product that you need to sell. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the other people don't even care. Like they see the product is nice, okay, I want to buy it, or like I saw it
Yep.
on this celebrity and I want it. Now I'm like, I think that the world is already full of crap, and I don't want to contribute to creating more. So
Mm-hmm.
either like we do it the way that I would do it, and I know that people in my community, let's say, would appreciate it done this
Yeah.
way, or I walk away because I don't think nothing is worth like compromising my beliefs, or like also, I guess, compromising the authenticity of something that like touches so many people just
Yeah.
for commercial purposes.
I get it. I get it. I mean, we know each other for a long time. I think we're quite similar in that
Hmm.
way, and it's it can be quite frustrating sometimes when also people use the word culture in
Yeah.
such a sort of flippant kind of way, you know what I mean? And I'm like, do you really understand what that community means, what it means to them, and
Yeah.
how important it is if you are a
Yeah.
brand to sort of not just extract, don't
Mhm.
extract, like add value, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there is a way to be able to do that. There is a way, there's a
Yeah.
mutually beneficial, respectful way
Mhm.
to do it.
Yeah.
But you need the people who are protective of that to be able to do it properly, and I honestly, I believe that. I mean, this is also why I'm doing this pod, like cultural voices. It's called cultural voices because it's people who have the voice of the culture and who can understand how to influence it, represent it, shape it, but properly. And if they do want to work with brands, then these are the people brands need to be working with in order to do that credibly. Credibly, like credibility for me and is huge. But I feel like there is a way to do it. You've
Yeah.
done it, I've done it. But
Mhm.
I feel like now it just feels like we're swinging the pendulum so far on branded content, commercial,
Yeah.
that you're missing sometimes that nuance, the golden nuggets, the
Mhm.
thing that makes it the thing that we
Yeah.
love, and that if that's missing, then it's not that anymore. You know what I mean? So yes, I think we're in this crazy transformational time. And I think it's going to take more of us vocally to be talking about this all the time. We're trying at every single brand. I'm like, what about this? But what about what about this view? What about this view? And not just the brand view. What about the cultural view? Like, what does it mean? And how can
Yeah.
we make sure that that is heard and seen and listened to and blah. So I hear you. And I, as you know, quite vocal about these things as well. Do you
Yeah.
see your work now and as a reflection
Mhm.
of your identity? Um, at the moment, like, has that, and that, you said you were malleable before. It feels for
Mhm.
me when I see any of your work, be it whether
Mhm.
you work for a brand, whether you work for Sister Marosa, whether you work, it feels, I can see Naomi's like personal
Yes.
views coming in. Absolutely.
100%.
And
So
and I think it's amazing and great. So please carry on. Don't change,
yeah,
but
like you know how like most of people that work like within a corporation always put in their
yeah.
Instagram bio like all views are personal. Have
Yes.
you ever seen
I
that?
mean, it's literally
Sorry,
personal.
sorry. Yes, because they obviously don't want to impact or whatever. They don't want they're
Yeah.
representative of
Yeah.
like the company they're working for.
Yeah.
One thing that was
Yeah.
always very important for me, when I was especially working in these big corporations, was that like I was very adamant about like letting people know that I was just Naomi, and at that very moment in time I was
Mm-hmm.
working for so and so company, but I was not Naomi from. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
have tried to keep that going also now. I mean, obviously, like it's been many years now since I've stopped working in a corporation.
Mm.
And people and people don't I mean, back like when I was working for Adidas, for example, that was it. It was like probably one of the most pivotal, like most important like roles I had in a big corporation. And
Hmm.
when people started telling me, well, some people from outside, obviously they don't know who I was unless like we were friends outside. So they were just like, "Oh, Naomi from Adidas," and I was
Hmm.
like, "No, please don't refer to me as that. Like I'm just Naomi that is currently working at." And
Yes.
as I was saying, like I think that my work is just an extension of my interests, my personality, who I am, my identity. So they're strictly connected and intertwined. And as you said, like one thing that I've learned now, or like that I've embraced now, like many years into my career, if so we want to
Hmm.
call it, is that like even if I'm starting a personal project, like and let's say it grows, it doesn't matter if the project fails or like if I have to walk away from it because I am
Mm.
still just
Mm.
me. I started Systema Rosa with a friend 2 years ago, and obviously that is like I think is the kind of final destination of a journey that I took on many years ago with that very first journey that I did from India. But I am so, I guess, I don't know if it's confidence, but like I'm so happy of who I am, where I am now, that if tomorrow Sistema Rosa had to shut down or if I had to walk away from it for whatever
Mm.
reason, obviously I would be sad, but still I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that was my whole identity, because I think that these
Yes.
are just projects that are created by me, but I'm not like I don't like it's just that is the external entity. It's like those are an extension of who I am, but they do not necessarily like represent me in the sense that like if it fails, I will cry or like I mean I will be sad, but I will not be like, oh my God, like I do not know where to go from now. Like that was my whole life. I have
Yeah.
a very full life outside of work, and I'm trying to make it even to work even less, to be honest, like just do the things that I love to do. But yeah, so
Yeah.
especially, I mean, obviously when you're doing your own projects, like you instill your own values and ideas into them and they kind of represent who you are. But at the same time, it's like just like when I was in corporations, I didn't want people to know me as Naomi from, but now it's like I want you to know me and I'm Naomi that does XYZ.
Yeah, I get it. And I totally, and it even though it may sound confusing, it's actually super clear to me. Because I also feel
Yeah.
like that's your way also of, I guess, fostering resilience as well. Because resilience comes from, it can be harder, it can be softer, whatever manifestation you want it to be. But it just means that you so connected to one thing that if that fails, that doesn't make you a failure. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that for me is resilience building is, and I've only learned that much later on, because obviously early in my career, I was like, oh my God, this didn't work out. That means I'm the, for now, I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work out because of blah, blah, blah reasons. That's cool. Okay. What am I going to learn from that? How do I roll that over and how do I make that different change, move on, whatever, all good. So resilience building for me is important, and one of the other pods I was on, she was like, I've let go of resilience. That's my new way of doing this. Resilience feels like you've got to get over it no matter what, blah blah blah. So what's your manifestation of or articulation rather of resilience today? I'm super interested to hear, because I think I learned a lot from speaking to Sital, when she was
Mm-hmm.
just like, resilience is a thing that made me hard. Said now that I'm older, I'm getting into my softer power, and that's okay. And that means releasing resilience, which I thought was really interesting. What is it for you? What is
Yeah.
it for you that enables you to continue? Is it this like extension but not definition of who you are when it comes to your work? Is that what it is for you, maybe?
Yes, good point. I think that what has kept me going, obviously, like my career has been nothing, it's definitely not linear at all. Like I've changed so many times, I've
Mm-hmm.
changed companies so many times, I've changed jobs. Up to this day, sometimes I still don't know if what I'm doing is what I actually want to do. So I've,
Of course.
you just have to keep going. I think that this is something also that I've got from my parents, that like you just continuously have to reinvent yourself in this world.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
nothing is too bad. Like work is something that you have to do to survive, obviously, but it's not everything that there is
Mm.
in life. And one thing I think that has to do with what we were talking about just like earlier is that I do not see, well, I did not see my work for companies as like who I am. Like I have, if I
Mm.
walk outside from operation tomorrow, I can figure something out. Because
Yeah.
my work is my passion. So I
Mm.
have developed here, or the work that I do, it stems from my interests. So it's like very true to who I am. So I and that's never going to kind of like go away, I think. And if it goes
Mm.
away, that means that I have to do something different. And I'm not
Yeah.
afraid of starting over. I think that's one thing that
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
learned, and that's what a resilience is. And I think that for me,
Mm-hmm.
resilience it doesn't necessarily mean that like, oh, I have to always go, you know, like or like, oh
Mm.
my god,
Mm.
like I'm afraid of failure, so I can never stop the hustle. um that's
Yes.
something actually that
Mm.
like we find very it's not a way of living that I'm interested in, especially now as I'm an
Mm-hmm.
older person, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
a grown adult. And spending a lot of time in the US versus where I am in Sicily now, for example, like life is much slower. Obviously, like people are just going, but there
Yes.
is like some things that you have more time to like take a breather and say, okay, like it's 11 a.m. I
Mm.
can go actually get an and nobody's gonna tell me anything about it. But meanwhile here, I mean, obviously the cost of living is way different. So I think that there is
Mm.
a an element of. But for me, resilience
Yeah.
is not being afraid to fail and um,
Yes.
pick yourself back up.
I love that actually, because nothing's perfect. Everything that you do is going to have ups and downs. Like I think if you feel like everything's going to be perfect, that's when you're going to really, really, really come undone because it's just not like that. That's just not real life. So, I think that's helpful to be able to think about it that way. Not be afraid of failure. I actually really love that. Can you share an example where your personal way of doing things actually led
Mhm.
to an unexpected breakthrough or an unexpected success? Now, this could be personal, this could be with a brand, this could be, in fact, anywhere along your journey where, because of the way you are, a project that people weren't too sure about or whatever has actually smashed it, basically. Anything come to mind for you?
Ooh. Well, I think actually I can reference, I think Systema Rosa. Systema
Mm-hmm.
Rosa is something that I mean, football and fashion is something that I've been exploring for many years, mostly for other
Mm-hmm.
people for a really long time.
Yes.
And when 2 years ago, well, first of all, System Rosa was born from like a dissatisfaction that me and Sam, my business partner, had
Mm-hmm.
towards what was coming out in this space for many years. Like
Mm-hmm.
I, I did not feel represented by it. She did not feel represented by it. And we were like always complaining about every campaign, every project we were seeing coming out.
Yeah.
And because I'm trying to practice more than preaching nowadays,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
just okay. I need to put a stop to like complaining and do something about it, because otherwise I just need to shut
Yeah.
up and keep it
Yes.
moving. So
Yeah.
And so from that dissatisfaction, then, I was like, okay, let's just start. And Sistema Rosa now is more of a fully fledged creative studio, let's say. But
Incredible.
when
Well
it
done.
started, it was more. Thank you. It was more like a vintage jersey. Well, we started with vintage jerseys, but like very specific,
Mm.
from the 70s and 80s non-league jerseys. So because they had more of a
Very
ridiculous feel,
specific. Yeah.
very specific.
Very
And
specific.
yeah, and we wanted to kind of like counter that like narrative of like, oh, wearing performance jerseys as a fashion statement because it just did not look
Hmm.
flattering on people. And so that was our entry
Hmm.
point. And then it kind of just like molded into what it is now. And it's just like, I mean, we officially launched December 26, 2023. And last year was our first year in business, and we got some really great feedback. So I
Amazing.
don't think that anyone was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. But for me personally, or for me and Sam, it was like, okay, we're gonna do this as a fun little project. And now like it's growing out of
Incredible.
control, really. And because we're just two people, and because like for, I mean, the past year it wasn't our only source of income. Sam, she's working as a
Mm.
consultant
Mm.
for other brands.
Hmm.
I have also
Hmm.
another project going on. um it's people think that we're just like, oh wow, like we're doing so much, but no, actually, like we're just two people and we're trying to make everything work. But I think that Systema Rosa is successful because me and Sam have very similar values, in the sense that like we
Hmm.
value authenticity, and we want to create something that is true and represents people like us who have like a lived
Hmm.
first-hand experience on in the football space. She grew up playing. I do not play, but obviously grew up in a very football environment and have been researching this topic for many years now. And so I think that that's what has given us success. And I hope that this answers the question.
Yeah, you did. You did. That's actually perfect. I think also, I also found that even with Platform 13, it was almost the culmination of being in house, Spin, my 10-year companies, like all of it came together in the end,
Mm.
and my mum said to me, like, when I got the job at Adidas, I was like, oh my God, this is really exciting. I grew up with, Adidas was like this huge, when I was in South
Yeah.
Africa. And she was like, but this may not be the job. This might be the step to the thing that you're
Mm.
actually going to do. And I didn't really understand. I was like, what do you mean? It's the job. And she's like, sure, your mum knows you really well. So
Yeah.
she was like, I think that this is the step. So this feels like actually, through the visual communication, through that early fashion stuff, through Mundial, you finally get to a place. And I think people don't really understand, when you love it, you can do more than people think with just two people. You love it. You know what I mean? So it's just not the same as the grind every day, although having a new thing and creating a project is tough and hard. how do you how do all of the experience kind of shape how you connect with others? How do you collaborate with others? Like, what is your connection, like leadership style, like whether you're managing people, whether you're collaborating with people? How does that work with you?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, like I see myself as an expert, but I don't think that I
Hmm.
am like the boss of others. So I think that I can kind of like steer the conversation, but like because I've done a lot of like team aggregating in the past years, I think
Yes.
my my leadership style is, so when I call it, is very horizontal. Like I think that the
Hmm.
most important step in like leading a project is choosing the right people to work on it, because then you have to do the least
100%.
leading possible. So
Yes.
I'm a very big hands-off leader. So like in the past years, or like even with Systema Rosa or whatever, I was involved in a lot of like what they now call narrative direction or whatever, like how to,
Hmm.
in campaigns. I guess it's a spin-off of creative direction, but more on the, I guess, language side.
Hmm.
Um, I have always, or one thing that I think I'm pretty good at is like getting the brief and like downloading it and then interpreting what the client wants. But I'm just kind of like the matrix to then like pick the right people to realize this vision. So to
Yeah.
me, that's my leadership style. Is like, okay, my leadership
Mm.
style is choosing the right talent to bring this idea to life without having to kind of like be on their back the whole time, like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do
Yeah.
that, because I think when
Mm.
people are, like micromanaging me. And I think that
Mhm.
what I want is to empower people to showcase their talents. And I think that if I chose
Yeah.
you, it means that like you're here for a reason, and I want you to kind of just shine on the project. So that's what I try to do. And I
Mhm.
think that I learned it. I keep coming back to Adidas, I guess, for my role in Adidas, because like I think that that was definitely, it was like a pivotal moment in my career. One, because the person that hired me there was somebody that I had worked with before, in Carhartt Work in Progress many years ago. And he hired me, or like he offered me to come and to this job because he thought that I was the perfect person for it. And he
Mhm.
allowed me to actually like do what I wanted to do all the time, and supported me through those like tricky, corporate or like commercial conversations that you have to have with higher ups that sometimes are not in
Yep.
touch with the culture, but want,
Mm.
you need to talk to anyways. And so I was very heavily inspired by this person to then bring this energy to my work as a leader
Mhm.
after. And and that just kind of carried with me in my work after. And now, yeah, I think that the obviously you need to kind of like steer the direction and like set the tone,
Of
but
course.
my leadership
Yeah, of course.
style is like leading by example. Like I try to be the first person to go in any project just so to set
Mhm.
the tone,
Mhm.
like. And yeah, like I think that a leader should be a facilitator. It shouldn't be like someone who's just like
Mhm.
telling you what to do. You
Sure.
should be you should become very good at identifying the right people for a role or a position, and then just let them do
Mhm.
what they're good at, and just kind of like
I
minimally like steering direction.
And I think, you know what's interesting, and I find this literally over and over again. I think, and this is me just listening to what you were saying, what I'm taking away from also is I don't think people understand how hard it is to translate a corporate brief into a cultural
Yeah.
scope of work. My goodness. I'm
Yeah.
like, that translation service, I call myself a translation service as well, is this the unpacking of a corporate brief into something that's gonna, really resonate in culture. You have to have
Yeah.
been on both sides for that to really work. Honestly, and that's probably
Absolutely.
why the projects that you work on do what they need to do, because you can interpret what they need inside in corporate or with whatever
Mhm.
brand it is, but also
Yeah.
what that translates to in terms of a brief and the type of people you work, whatever it might be. There's a lot to be
Yeah.
said about that briefing process, because I've seen it so many times, and I'm sure you have as well, when inside that brief gets given to a traditional agency, and the
Yeah.
interpretation of that is, what we see out there when it
Yeah.
becomes less authentic, all the things. And so that's why I've always been so vocal about work with the people from the culture. It's not that hard. Just
Say it again.
but
Say it
the
again. Say it
translation,
again.
we know, we
Yeah.
we've been talking about it for a long time. But I think my experience in house, like yours, gives you this added translation service, which I feel like makes all the difference on both sides. Because also you can take those cultural pieces of gold and translate them to make sure it makes sense
Yeah.
and is understood in the language of inside,
Yeah.
which I don't think people understand is quite different, and you only really know once you've been there. So yeah,
Yeah.
translation. We're translators. too, which I think
Yes.
that really
I
helps with
love this.
delivering. Yeah, delivering work that resonates but is mutually beneficial. All the things that ideally would
Yeah.
like it to be.
Yeah.
Are there any specific lessons? So when you're, briefing this, I also call it curator team, assemble team, aggregator
Yeah.
team, because I'm very similar to you. Whatever we do, we curate the team accordingly.
Yeah.
How do you share lessons from your personal journey? Do you share lessons from that and go, this is what I'd like to see? Or are you just, or do you just hand it over to them in terms of their expertise? You talked about steering a project.
Yeah.
Give us one example of when you had to intervene in something. How did that?
Um, Hopefully, this has not happened in a really long time. I think because I've
Good.
perfected this skill of like picking the right people.
Yeah.
And because I have been developing work that is like really specific to my expertise or like my
Yeah.
field of knowledge, I've had the privilege, I think, to not have to intervene very often. And also like
Good.
I know, or yeah, I've had to um sort of, I guess, like I worked on many projects recently in the past years where I can, that are on the same like similar concept wise, I guess, or like
Hmm.
same space, so I can get to work with people that I know have the same, that I know really well, and like we already work together, and I
Hmm.
they know what I'm
Hmm.
expecting out of them.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I don't have any negative, I think, idea, but recently I was kind of, I don't even know if I can talk about this, but anyways, like I will be very, I guess, high level on this. Like I was hit up by an agency because they're doing work in football in Italy, and
Yeah.
they wanted to have my insights, I guess, on what would resonate with an
Hmm.
Italian football crowd.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they when they showed me their creative direction, like it just kind of demonstrated that they had no idea what they were about to go into. So the idea was really good in theory, but then it just did not land for the type of country and people that they were
How
communicated with.
interesting. Yeah.
So I think that I kind of destroyed their idea. Unfortunately, I mean, I thought that it was like in theory it was really good. It just did not apply
Yeah.
to where we were going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, that was one time where I was like, okay, I respect the work that you do. I like what you do a lot, but the not the brief, but like the output or like the creative direction that you put together does not resonate with the place where you want to place it, and or you need to communicate it. And so I think that that's when I had to kind of say, hey guys, like this is not working.
Yeah.
And I I agree with you that like I think that companies should do a better job at identifying the right agency or individuals to work on a brief that, and who's in touch with the territory or the culture
Whoever.
subculture
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah, because there are a lot of like great creative agencies out there, but if you don't have like you're not in touch with what's going on the ground, no matter how amazing your idea is, it's just not going to land well because you're not
Yeah.
able to interpret what people like or what people are like. And again, like going back to my pride in Italianity or Italianness, whatever, I think that this happens so many times with brands who want to portray that Italian vibe in their campaigns.
They do.
It's,
They love it.
yeah, they have this othering lens, and they want to portray like they want to portray Italy or this special feeling that only a tourist has in Italy and living in Italy.
Mm.
And I guess like it's a sort of escapism, but for me, for somebody who lives in these places, especially in the south of Italy, it's just like, okay,
Mm.
like we're not just props in like on a beach for your bikini campaign. And this happens over and
Yeah.
over, but because it's really very rare that companies, like foreign companies, for example, hire somebody that is from the place to build the campaign.
It's so interesting. Honestly, I call it real world insights because I'm like, you see a lot of agencies who get insights that are written about and take that as like, the law basically. And I'm like, all you need to do is speak to the people who really understand and know and bring them as part of the team, bring them
100%.
as part
Yeah.
of the ideation. Don't bring them in
Mhm.
afterwards to justify your idea. Just bring them in right upstream.
Yeah,
You will get much
exactly.
richer creative territories from it. Like it just feels quite an obvious thing, but I don't know if that's because I didn't learn my craft in a traditional way at all, So I guess I come from cultural
Yeah.
areas, so for me that's something that I hold very dear to me, and I want to make sure that any brand is also protective of that, because that's what makes the world go around. For me, it's the stuff of life, right? So that's the way I see it. But I just feel like it's not rocket science. Just get the right people in the room upstream, because by
Yeah.
the time they come to you to check the ideas late in the day, it's too late in the
Yeah.
day. So it's really interesting what you're saying. What do you think? So just talking about from the beginning of your career path to now and
Mhm.
everything we've just talked about, is there any new perspective that you've learned recently, um, that you've gone, you know what, this is something new and additional that I'm going to add to my value system, to my beliefs? Has there anything happened that you've gone, okay, this is great, this is new, and this is a new perspective for me?
I have a hard time with this question just because I'm trying to think. It's
Or not as
tough to.
well, because it could also just be that this is, you're just leaning into the things that because sometimes
Yeah.
you go, what's a new perspective? Is it something that come from, because listen, the rise of female sports, like
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? Like, let's talk about that, because obviously you know football is the interesting bit, but obviously there's this other new layer, thankfully, that's
Yeah.
become what it always should have been. But I guess it'd be good to understand from you, actually, because obviously there's a
Yeah.
huge lens on it at the moment, huge focus on it. How are you feeling about it?
Well, obviously, I'm happy that, female athletes are getting the recognition that they need. I think that's super cool. And also the representation that the new generations have on screen is pretty amazing to see, because I can take myself as an example. Growing up
Yes.
in a football household, did not know that women's football existed.
Right.
So, it's changed a lot. And now little girls have role models that
Yeah.
before did not exist. And that's amazing, because I'm excited to see what, the future holds for them.
Hmm.
But I think that there is something that I dislike about this, that is
Okay.
the comparison male sports. For example, in women's
Hmm.
football, everyone is talking about how women are not paid the same as the male footballers and
Hmm.
whatever. And like, obviously, I want women athletes, or like female athletes, to be paid enough to not have to do a second job,
Another
and
job.
also do
Yeah. Yeah.
another job, and also, like,
Mm.
they're entertainers, so they deserve high pay
Mm.
because they make everybody
Mm.
happy. At the same time, like, I think that one should look at the male infrastructure of the sport and kind of criticize it, because the male football, like male sports, are so exclusive nowadays for fans, for example,
Mm.
because tickets expensive. Does one person really need like $40 million a year just because they're playing football? And I think that they do
Mm.
have like a lot of qualities, and obviously, again, like, they entertain, but like, even like looking at like what's happening in the US, they wanted to bring Messi over, and they had to get three
Hmm.
companies to sponsor this deal, and now is getting paid so much money. And I'm like, why? Do
Yeah.
we need to follow this path for women's football? I don't think so, because like also
Mm.
so much exploitation and so much like unsustainability. Like it's the so I wish that people would look at women's football and like not as like the little brother of like male football and have to follow in its footsteps, but just create its own space with its own, pace and rules and rules instanced of like how it works, infrastructure and
Yeah, yeah.
marketing and
Get
all
it.
this type of. And another thing that I'm quite annoyed at sometimes is like the communication or the narrative around female sports is that like, oh, they deserve to be here, like it's a charity. No, I think that they're like
Hmm.
professional athletes. They provide an entertainment service, and they're not a charity. Like they
Yeah.
need to be treated as professional athletes, not just like, oh, they're
Yeah.
cute, like, oh wow, they're playing. No, like it's amazing. I think that,
They so cute.
for
They so
example,
cute. Here they are. Here they
yeah,
are on the
they're so
side
cute.
playing
Look
their
at
little game
them.
on the
Yeah,
side.
exactly. Like, wow,
Tell
like they
you. Mm.
deserve to be paid. No, like, well, they deserve to be
Mm.
paid, of course, but like, the reason is because they're doing the same job that the males are
Job.
doing, but like in their
Mm.
own way. But I think that one thing that I'm really pleasantly satisfied by is how like the WNBA is communicating nowadays. I think that also
Hmm.
female basketball players have changed a lot. Like I remember when I was
Yeah.
watching basketball, the even like the look of the players was very different. Now like they
Hmm.
have the opportunity to like really show their personality on the pitch. Like they go with their
Hmm.
hairstyle, they have nails, they have makeup, whatever. I think that this is really cool. And I think that the WNBA is, or like the communication that's and the investment that's being put in the WNBA or like women's basketball in the US is much more, has a healthier feel to it, because like they're treated like the professionals that they are. It's like
Mm.
they like have their like what's her name, Asia Wilson, she has her own Nike shoe now, and like that's so rare, but it's the same, she's being treated the same as like a male counterpart, and because she's so amazing at what she does. And
Yeah.
I think that I love to see how the WNBA is marketing the
Yeah.
game and its players. So okay, maybe that's a perspective, I guess, that I'm really happy
I
to
think that's a
have. Or
yeah. That
yeah.
that was a great response to that. Never know. Might
Mhm.
see you back with the NBA this
Yeah,
time.
no,
Seems
you
like you're
never
quite
know.
excited
Yeah.
about it. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Um,
Yeah.
cool. Just last two questions, Naomi. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. If you could write a letter to your younger self, what would you
Hmm.
say about the importance of staying true? And this is
Hmm.
your essence, I feel, staying
Yeah.
true to who you are and your personal experience. Um, a letter to your younger self. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like you has anything changed? I don't know. It feels like you've been the same way since then.
Yeah. I think my personality hasn't changed, but I've obviously grown into being
Mm.
less, I guess, rowdy in a way. But what I would tell myself is to accept, well, there is going to be a lot of setbacks. Like if people look
Yeah.
at me from outside and probably say, oh wow, like you've had such an amazing run. No, like
Mm.
the what you see from outside is just the beautiful part, like nobody ever
Yeah.
sees the ugly part, like your mental breakdowns,
Hmm.
especially working in this
Mm.
industry.
Yep.
But I would just tell myself to stick to my guns, as I've
Yes.
always done, and just keep going, and do not be afraid to pivot when you have to pivot, and to kind of like continuously uh look, or I guess take stock of your interests and how you're feeling about something, a project, because that's what's going to bring you to like your ultimate, I guess, joy in
Mm.
work. Because
Yeah,
I think that even to this day, sometimes I question what I'm doing, and I don't know
of
if what I'm
course.
doing is
Yeah.
now is what I'm going to be doing until the rest of my life. Um, but yeah, just I would tell younger Naomi to just like stick to your guns, like uh continue to nurture your interests and passions, and then one day you will
Yeah.
get to do, or you will have a clearer picture of what you actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so last question. Oh no, that went really quickly. What does success look to you now? Like both professionally, personally, from
Yeah.
then? Has it changed? Has success
Mhm.
before and success now feel quite different? And what are the differences?
Yeah. So when I had first started my journey, my professional journey, I thought that success meant
Yes.
to have that position within the company that I so much admired and
Mm.
respected. And I actually, like, I think because I jumped around so much, like I got to positions of quote unquote power, let's say, within a
Hmm.
company very quickly.
Hmm.
I became a manager at Nike when I was just 24 years old, so I was
Phew.
very young, and
Yep.
I thought, wow, this is my dream job. I always wanted to work in communications, marketing, whatever, within a company
Hmm.
like this.
Hmm.
And very quickly, when I got that job, I realized that no, actually, this is not what you want to do.
Hmm.
And so that kind of like was the beginning of my shift in how I see success. Now, success for
Yeah.
me means having less work, but of more quality. So work less,
Yeah.
but with bigger like projects that mean more to me, rather than doing like being on demand, so much on demand that like I have no time off. I want to be
Yes.
less in demand, but for better reasons. um,
Yeah.
and in my personal life, because I've spent the last 15 years so far away from my family, being able to like kind of take some months off to just spend the time with them, and nurture some of my interests that are outside of work. Like I've recently,
Yeah.
which is sounds very cliche, I picked up pottery, for example. And that's like a very popular practice nowadays, but like
Right.
because I'm still traveling quite a bit, and my pottery studio is in Palermo, Sicily, where I live.
Mm.
There is months where I cannot access it because I'm in the US, for example. And so
Sure.
I feel very sad, because like it's something that I've really enjoyed. It gives me a peace of mind. And
Yeah.
so I would love to be able to do more of that. And also, like, because I'm a writer, I haven't been writing much
Hmm.
lately because I've other stuff. So I would love to go back to that. And success for me means, yeah, having downtime, or like having time to dedicate to projects that are not necessarily work
Hmm.
related, but make me happy, and spend time with my family. Yeah.
Well, I feel like actually you started that move by moving back to Sicily. That was, from Milan, you were there for years, in that, in the hustle and the grind. So I think, you took a big step, maybe even subconsciously not really thinking about what it is and why you were doing it, but it feels like that's your next path. And I wish you well, we'll keep in touch.
Thank
But
you.
thank you
Yeah.
so, so much for this. This has been really insightful. And really helpful. And it's been really nice to actually chat to you and really understand a bit more about how these things come about, because we see a lot of amazing things. It's always great to understand where it comes from. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Lynn. Bye. Have a great day. Ciao.